Welcome to the Making Love podcast with Tish and Pastor Roy. This is where love gets real, faith leads the way, and marriage becomes something you actually enjoy. We're talking laughter, connection, and the kind of conversations that challenge what you thought you knew while giving you practical, faith-filled ways to make something that lasts. Whether you're married, dating, or just curious, this is your time to grow together, have fun, and create a relationship rooted in friendship, purpose, and connection. Because when love is made, it doesn't just last, it gets better every day.
This is Pastor Roy and my beautiful wife, Letitia Times.
No, absolutely not.
What?
Tish, please.
Don't call
That's
you that.
us, though. That's not for the whole world.
Sounds weird.
Well, this is our very first podcast, and I want to make sure that we introduce ourselves properly to the world.
Fine. Whatever.
Well, I think it's going to be important for people to kind of understand a little bit about where we come from and how we got to know each other. So let's hear your version, and then I'll tell mine.
So tell the truth and then tell the makeup story. Okay, so great. It was interesting. We tell our story not too often because we don't want people to think this is the way you should do it.
Right.
Because we met in May.
Yeah.
And then we got engaged 2 weeks later.
True.
And then married 3 months later.
4
months later. I know I was there. But so we don't share that part a lot because we don't want people thinking, oh, you should just run into it.
Yeah.
No, we were just crazy. And by the grace of God, it worked out.
Yeah.
But I had just moved to El Paso, and you were serving at the Joy Center at the church in the singles ministry.
Yeah.
And there was this singles barbecue going on. And so our pastor was like, hey Tish, invite Roy to this to the singles barbecue. And you didn't want to call me.
Truth.
For because you were putting things on the phone call that nobody told you to put.
I just didn't want to be forward. That's all.
You had an instruction from the man of God to
I
make
didn't
a
want to be
phone
forward.
call.
I wasn't calling no man.
You had an instruction that you decided, I'm just not going to obey God. I'm just going to
Look.
You asked me to tell it.
Okay. Well, you're doing good. And actually, I'm really impressed because the details are pretty good. You're doing pretty good.
I was there.
You don't always remember everything, though.
I remember everything.
Okay.
I just maybe not remember the way you remember it.
Yeah.
But we met, and instantly we didn't like each other.
Well, it wasn't that we didn't like each other.
You thought I was a mama's boy.
Well, because that's all you did was talk about your mom.
I missed my mom. I hadn't seen her in a while.
Well, that was my first initial, reaction. But it wasn't that I didn't like you, though.
Yeah, well, I didn't like you. I thought you were mean to your kids. But regardless, I let you drive my truck, and I was in my body like, why are you letting this stranger drive your vehicle? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But we talked, and we really kind of got along. And then I was afraid you were falling for me.
Can we just stop right there? Because that part makes it sound like I was all over you. So let me come back and let me fill in some blanks here.
Okay, so
the thing that I remember, the parts of it that I remember the most, and I was probably most, I don't know, I knew it was something special because I had been single for 2 years. Many people who know my story know that I was first married to an abusive man. And so once I got out of that relationship, I was like, I am done. Jesus is my husband, and I'm not messing with any men for a long time, which is why I didn't call you. It wasn't that I didn't want to. But I had written this letter, and in the letter, I had written all of the things that I specifically wanted in my husband. And I was like, standard set, not backing down. I'm only accepting what I believe is, this perfect, this perfect man, which people had told me that no one like you existed, that God was going to have to go back to the dirt to create my husband. And I was okay with that. I was completely okay with that. But when we met And we started to have our marathon conversation.
Yeah.
That was probably like a 6-7 hour date, if you will.
Yeah.
Little by little.
Interview, maybe.
Well, no, it was just us hanging out. But in the back of my mind, there was a part of me that was like, check, check. You were like meeting all of the criteria that I'd written on my letter. And so there was something on the inside of me that knew, for certain that you were my husband. I didn't say that, I didn't say that out loud, but something inside of me really did know that. But if you remember that night that we had the barbecue, and I'm thinking, actually, this was a different barbecue. The first barbecue was at someone else's house. The second one was at my apartment.
Correct.
But remember, I had walked out of the house because I was freaking out. I was thinking, oh my God, I have these kids. I don't want to move too quick, trying to date this guy. And it seems like, things are really clicking really well. And I sat outside of my apartment by myself. Everybody's inside of my apartment. And I'm sitting outside and I just said, God, you have to show me if this is the one, because I don't want to rush into anything. I'd been in an abusive relationship and I had these 2 little boys I had to protect. And God spoke to my heart and specifically said, you're one with him. And then I walked into the apartment, and as everybody was leaving and we were saying goodbye to everyone before you left, you gave me a hug and you said, we're one. And that was like the moment I knew for certain that we were, we were supposed to be together. And then probably 2 days later you proposed. So, I mean, those are like the little details that I remember. And I think it's important that we see things from our own perspective. But I think as a woman, I'm remembering like the little things that just kind of made it clear that we were together. We were going to be together.
Absolutely. But, remember, it took a little convincing on my part because you did have 2 kids and I have a history of not being, shall we say, super truthful and nice to the women I dated.
Yeah.
And so you were really the first woman that I was like, I'll just have to be real the whole time.
Yeah.
Which was not my norm. And so we had to go through a little bit, or at least I had to go through a little bit. I had to grow up sharply and quickly. And one of the biggest things about us getting together was when I took you to lunch to tell you shouldn't be with me.
Yeah, that was a mess. That was a hot mess.
That was crazy.
So let me just explain to people what this sounded like. If you've ever watched Charlie Brown and you heard the teacher talk, that's pretty much how he sounded. I think in his head, he was trying to protect me by warning me that he was this terrible manipulative person.
Because that was my history.
But somehow God just jumbled your words to where I was literally like, what are you talking about? I couldn't understand a word you were saying. And it was perfect. It was exactly the way it was supposed to be, because whatever you were trying to say, I never heard. And we just kept moving forward.
And I remember at the end of my crazy conversation, you were like, well, we're friends. It's okay. And I remember my heart just breaking a little, like, oh. And I was surprised how I felt in that moment, because I guess in all honesty, I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I'd always been taught, don't marry a woman with kids because you marrying problems, kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And yet I found myself thinking about you, always wanting to talk to you. And I just was like, you know what? I think I love this woman. And so I need to warn her.
Well, the warning did not happen.
The warning it didn't stick.
But, the part that we didn't say is that first barbecue that we talked about at my apartment, that is, that your brother was in town.
Yeah.
Sam had come in town to visit. And when he came in, he had to flight out, maybe I guess late that evening.
Yeah. And
you had to take him to the airport. And I remember you looking at me and saying, is it okay if I come back sometime? And I was like, of course, totally, for sure. And I finished cleaning up and put the kids to bed. And I'm sitting on my couch and I hear, And I was like, who is there? And then I opened the door and you were standing there. And I was just like, what are you doing here?
You said I could come back.
Yeah, I didn't know you met that same night, but it was so funny because I think we probably talked another, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it was forever.
Sitting there. And we have this person in our lives that love him to pieces, Elder Lyndon Mayfield.
Oh, man.
Who is like,
thank God for him.
we were like 24, 25 at the time.
Yeah.
And I was a single woman. So, there were people in the ministry that just kind of looked out for me, with me and the kids. And he came driving through the parking lot one night and he saw your car and he came and said, "It's time for you to go home, sir." He kicked you out. Grown man kicked you out. But it was for our own good.
Absolutely.
And we were able to maintain our relationship.
And that was the thing, too, because we would start checking the time like, oh, yeah, Elder Mayfield going to be coming through in a minute.
Yeah.
I got to go.
Yeah. But it was a necessary thing for us at that particular time because we had made a decision to keep ourselves until we had gotten.
And you were so attracted to me. It was hard.
Look,
Am I lying?
I was, but you were too.
Oh, yeah. But I'm the one talking, so I'm just sharing the perspective I saw.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Out of all the things that happened on our journey, what would you say to someone, because, we as pastors, we always have people coming to us and, they're ready to get married, they're wanting to have counsel, and we have the privilege of doing a lot of that. But think about someone who's just, considering getting married. And we always tell people, don't do what we did because I think we were anointed for that. It was very special.
Absolutely.
But the person who's thinking a similar type of thing, what would you say to that person right now if they were talking about doing what we did?
You really have to know yourself.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing that most people don't get. The minute you say I do, a different version of you shows up.
Truth.
Because you have these latent expectations of a spouse that you've never really tapped into those expectations because you weren't married before. Right. So you got to know who you are and where you come from so you can deal with the shift that happens in you after you say I do. Yeah. If you're still trying to figure you out, that's no time to be trying to get married. True. Because you're still figuring out who you are, and then you're going to change.
Yeah.
And then whoever you're trying to marry is going to change, and you're going to feel like we all change, all four of us.
Yes, I know, right?
So you really need to be aware of who you are so that you can deal with the change and you can kind of grow with it and go with it. That's the main thing. Marriage is one of the most important decisions you're ever going to make.
True.
And if you think, well, if it doesn't work, I'll get a divorce, you're not ready for marriage.
Not at all. Not at all. You mentioned the love map, and I'd like to kind of explain to people what that means because we were so blessed as we were preparing to get married. We had our own ministry that we had, our marriage counseling with. And because we were both leaders in the ministry, we actually had a chance to do some counseling with our bishop.
Oh, yeah.
But we also, at the time, I was a work study in a community college, and I worked in the counseling department. And the leader of that department also happened to be a minister from another church that he was just the most amazing man. And I'd known him for many years, and he kind of took me in under his wing. And I remember that he said, you know what, I'd love to come over. Me and my wife do counseling for our church, and we'd love to come and just share with you all before you all get married. And we were like, absolutely. And he came over to my apartment, and we sat with him, and he gave us something that was such a game changer. And
absolutely.
It's been such a game changer. And he talked to us about love maps.
Yeah. And
he said that the love map it's based on what your expectation is of marriage because of what you saw growing up. Right. And he talked about how if you saw your mother always having dinner on the table at 5 o'clock and, being the homemaker and so on and so forth, sometimes that either creates an expectation or it causes you to repel it because you've seen it for such a long time.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And some of the things that we found was like I had never taken out trash.
Yeah.
Because my dad
Or
in
put
our
gas
house,
in your car.
or put gas in my car, because in my household,
Funny enough, your car's empty right now.
I know. Let's not talk about that. But the man always mopped the floor in my house growing up. The man always took the trash out. The man always put gas in the car or oil or anything that had to do with any kind of maintenance. So when we got married, I was looking at you crazy and I was like, I'm not taking trash out. I'm not touching a mop bucket. It's something I've never done. And we both know I've run out of gas more than once since we've been married, right?
Yes.
But what are some of the things that you found from your love map that kind of informed what you expected from me?
It was weird because, again, I didn't know I would have these expectations. Like, I knew I wanted you to cook. That was, I can't do it. So somebody in this relationship is going to have to do it.
Right.
And, that was one of my interview questions. Can you cook?
Yes.
And it was when you made pork chops, I said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
she the one.
Yeah.
She the one. But beyond that, I didn't know I would expect this or that I needed this, but I really needed someone who would accept me for me and not make me feel less than for my failures.
Yeah.
And it was because I saw when my parents got a divorce, one of the things that my mom would do is she would tell me all the ways my dad failed. And I felt like she was attacking me, even though she was talking about him. So a part of my love map was I need somebody who's going to be supportive and who's going to help me to be the best version of me versus someone who's going to attack me for not being what they think I should be. Yeah. And I'll never forget, I was sitting on the couch with the kids watching a cartoon, and you came in and you said, I love you so much. You always take out the trash, and I never have to tell you. And you walked off, and I remember at that moment looking at the trash can, and it was full. I got up and took the trash out because you said what you said the way you said it, and it made me say, if that's what she thinks, I better do it. Versus you could have came and said, I asked you to take the trash out and it's full and it's still not out. When are you going to take the...
Yeah.
And I would have instinctively been defensive.
Right.
But because you did it the way you did it and you put forth the best version of me and how that made you feel, it made me say, you know what, I gotta live up to this guy who apparently takes the trash out all the time. and you've been that way with me our whole marriage. 97% of it.
Okay.
I needed that, and I didn't know I needed it until we got married, and until in that context, I started to feel like, man, am I a failure? Like, you know, I don't know how to raise kids. I don't know how to do this. And I'll never forget that one weekend after we got married. We had been married maybe a couple, 3 months. I was just freaking out.
Yeah.
I just was freaking out because I wasn't used to people calling me daddy.
Yes.
I wasn't used to somebody being in my bed every night with, braids in my mouth every morning. I wasn't used to any of that. And so I remember I got up one Saturday morning, got dressed and went to work because I didn't know what else to do. And thank God, I had a friend who talked me down and helped me make the emotional mental transition. But it was because I didn't really know, I didn't expect change to be so different. I just knew I was in love and we were getting married. Yeah. I didn't realize it was going to change my whole life.
Yeah, everything actually.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
And so you have to be ready to roll with the change.
Right. I just remember because I didn't respond well to people raising their voice or, being really, just evil, mean, whatever, some of the things I grew up seeing, and then having my first marriage be abusive. It was really difficult for me to experience anyone even giving me the hint of that kind of behavior. And so the things that I love about what we built over time was that I remember when I was having lots of trouble in that first business when my staffing company was on the brink of failure and everything around me looked like it was crumbling and I was just so afraid of losing everything, afraid to talk to you about all the things that I had going on. But I don't know if you remember this. We were on I-10 in El Paso driving, and you said something to me that was probably the biggest, it was just the best thing it was what I needed in that moment. And you said, basically, there's only a couple of people that I know who can do literally anything. And you said it was myself, you said Bishop Brown and you. And I was just like, I needed to hear that more than anything because all of me, I was telling myself such a terrible story that I needed to hear someone supporting me in that moment. And, that's what you gave. Now, we can also talk about the time that we had to kind of figure things out because at the beginning, we didn't have the greatest communication, right?
Correct.
And I had a fear of sharing bad news already because of my experience. And then you didn't have the best response when you heard bad news.
No.
And so we had to figure out how to communicate in a way that would benefit, the thing that we needed to talk about, number one, but also wouldn't hurt each other.
That was my love map too. I never saw my parents communicate.
Yeah.
They didn't even talk about what's for dinner in my presence. Like my mom would make what she made and we ate it. And my dad was like, if you don't like it, you're not hungry, you're not gonna eat nothing.
Right.
So I never saw communication modeled. I only saw my dad talk to my mom and buy her things when he had screwed up.
Wow.
And I always knew he messed up because he would pick me up from school. And in Houston, they had this big flower district, and it was like 1 million flowers ranging from $5 to $500. And the more he spent on flowers, the worse I knew he messed up.
Wow.
And so that was what was modeled for me. But at the same time, my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, I never saw them argue.
Yeah.
And I always saw my grandmother, she would wake up, she had to be at work at 6 a.m. She would wake up at like 3, make breakfast and lunch, and then go to work. So by the time my grandfather and myself and my brothers got up in the morning, breakfast was hot on the stove. And you remember those old stoves that had that metal plate would just catch the heat and keep stuff warm all day? Lunch would be on the top and breakfast would be on the griddle plates. And so we would eat breakfast, and he would come home for lunch, we would eat lunch. About an hour or two after lunch, my grandmother would get home and make dinner. So by the time my grandfather got home, we ate dinner. And that was how she loved him.
Yeah.
And I saw that. And even with my mom, even though their relationship wasn't the best, she showed her love for us by cooking for us.
Yeah.
And she would make these huge breakfasts on Saturday, especially in the summertime, homemade biscuits and making myself hungry.
Yeah.
Bacon and ham and eggs and grits and everything. That was how I knew to demonstrate love. At least that's how I expected it.
Yes.
I thought from my part, love was I'm gonna go to work and bring home this paycheck.
Yeah. And the problem with that, or at least the misunderstanding for us with that was, although I cook and, I cook well, but I was like, if that's what you're looking for, you got the wrong one because I'm not doing that every day. And the other thing was going to work and staying at work all the time and thinking that that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And we had to very quickly realize, you know what, we've misunderstood what the other person needs and then figure out a common ground.
Yeah, you say quickly, but it took
years.
Yeah, it took years to figure it out.
Years, yeah.
Because I'm like, what do you mean? I went to work.
Yeah, and I'm like, you've been there for 2 days. Can you please come home?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, you know what? I can cook, but I'll cook breakfast on Saturdays because I work too. So don't expect breakfast every single morning. And so I think that for those that are like getting married, those who are even considering it, it's so important that they understand the partner's love map.
Absolutely.
And they know how to explain their own love map to their partner, because it is a hard thing to have an expectation of someone doing something that they're not clear you're expecting of
Right.
them. And then you're basically grading them on a test they never got the answers to study before.
Exactly.
And so it's just, I'm so grateful for Mr. Beasley. He's gone on to be with God at this point, but he gave us such a tremendous gift.
Because he gave us the tools to recognize what was going on so that we could then begin to make adjustments.
Yeah.
We understood, oh, wait, I have these expectations that I didn't know I had.
Right.
And I need to start explaining things.
Yeah, or I got this trigger that I haven't explained to them.
Exactly,
why this bothers me and why I'm so upset about it. The last thing I really want to also remind or, kind of share is, remember we had the couple that was the missionaries.
Oh, yeah.
That would go into Africa and be gone for, weeks at a time or even months at a time. And that one time when the wife couldn't go.
Yeah.
And the man went by himself and was gone during the time when there was apartheid. There was a lot of, danger,
a lot of
violence and everything.
Yeah.
And they hadn't heard from him for weeks.
Yeah.
She didn't know if he was dead or alive.
Yeah, because he was going across borders.
Yeah, all the time. But she said to us as well, she said, give each other grace. Always, if you can avoid an argument, avoid it because you just don't know. She said, the one thing I want more than anything else right now is to see a towel on the floor or the curtain open when it should be closed or socks on the, on the table or whatever. And so she said, pick your battles.
Yeah.
And ensure that you give each other grace because you're going to wish you had those things if you didn't. So
that was the best advice.
I love that we've had this conversation. I can't wait to have the next one because I know we're going to be talking about
more about
talking about our first loves.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great. And our first episode, I hope everyone feels like they know us a little bit now.
Yeah.
And but we'll be back next time.
See ya. As we wrap up today's conversation, remember, marriage isn't just about getting through life together. It's about truly knowing, supporting, and enjoying one another along the way. When you create your relationship on faith, true friendship, and intention, love becomes something that grows stronger every day. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who means the world to you, and keep leaning into the kind of love that lasts. We'll see you next time, Love Podcast with Tish and Pastor Roy.